Could you allow us? Okay. Uh-huh. Mm. Uh-huh. Okay. Now, okay, I can share my own slide. Yeah, thank you so much.
Not yet shared.
Not yet shared, but in my presentation, I will share my slide.
Okay.
Good evening, 皆さん。
皆さん。
お久しぶりです。
久しぶりです。
お元気ですか？
なんとか。
Hello, Professor Okada. Hello, Professor.
Oh,
Hello, Doctor.
hello, nice to see you again.
Likewise. It's been quite some time that we've met, but nice that you could join us today.
So today, how many people will join?
So there are about 30 people who have registered, and there are, I think, about more 20 people from all the teams that are going to join. So all in all, about, I'm guessing, around 50 people. And I think it's also streaming, as I see on YouTube. So yes.
Yeah, Adil, we have a few participants who've joined. I think if we wait for 5 more minutes, we should be able to have some more people.
Sure. Okay.
Just wait for 5 more minutes if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. Thank you.
That call is from Okamura-san, and Okamura-san asked me to send the Zoom address, so I send it to him. So perhaps he will join soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Fukami.
So, Okamura-san already joined.
Oh,
Okay.
岡村さん、名前を英語にした方がいいと思いますよ。表示のところ。
本当だ。
今ちょっとやってます。
あ、
Hello, Dr. Okamura.
アディルバイ。
あ、岡村さん、こんにちは。
こんにちは、岡村です。すみません、ご無沙汰してます。
こちらこそ。
どこで買えるんでしたっけ？
右クリックをして、自分の画面右クリックして、一番下の名前を変更するじゃなかった。
うん。
ありがとうございます。
So, these four presenters from Japan. That's all from Japan.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh. Kami-san, you didn't announce this webinar to Japanese colleague.
Japanese?
うん。
Oh, I didn't
I didn't.
announce. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, that's yes.
We have the event. The event is going to be streamed on YouTube as well. So once the event is over, maybe we can share the link with you, and it can be viewed later on.
Is it possible
Okay.
for you to share
Yeah,
this
that
link?
would be wonderful.
Yes, yes. I'm just getting it. Once the live stream starts, I'll just share it over here.
That's fine.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ashna-san, are you from Ahmedabad or from
Yes. Yes. So we work in Ahmedabad. Center for Heritage Conservation is based in Ahmedabad.
Okay.
Okay, so Adil, should we start? I think the others
Yes.
can join us and when they.
Ajay is here and so is Vishaka, yes. So I
Yes.
think we should start.
Yes. Vishaka, may I request you to share the presentation?
Oh, just give me a moment.
Yes, sure. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to this online discussion on the work that has been done and is ongoing in Bhadreshwar. We have called our collaboration Saanjho Bhadreshwar, which is a heritage conservation initiative with an aim to, with a commitment to protect, preserve the historic and cultural environment of this town, specifically looking at restoring human, cultural, and natural heritage links. So the aim of this webinar, the main intent of this webinar today is to kind of contextualize this collaboration within the work that has already been happening in the town since 2001. And this collaboration, the current collaboration has 5 cross architects based in Mumbai, along with Center for Heritage Conservation, CEPT Research and Development Foundation, Ahmedabad, and Educated Environments, also known as Eden. And together we are trying to work towards the protection of the built and living heritage of Bhadreshwar. So we welcome you all. Just a couple of housekeeping instructions. I request everyone to keep their audios off throughout the webinar. You may keep your videos on. It helps, it feels nice to look at more people when we are talking. So you can keep your videos on, that's fine. We will have some time for question answers or discussions towards the end of the webinar. So in case you have some questions, you can either put them in the chat box, or you can, at the end of the webinar, you can, talk as well. So over to Adil.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Ashna, for introducing the project collaborators and also the participants that are also here. So, yes, so Vishaka, can we go to the next slide? Great. So I'll just take a minute to actually summarize how this project came about to being. And the whole story started off during my time in Cairo when I was working with Dr. Fukami in historic Cairo on another revitalization project. And there came about, the project Bhadreshwar, which was initiated by the original members post the 2001 earthquake, where it was a response that was set up and a project that spanned for almost about 7, 8 years. And today we're glad to have these original members, join us for this online colloquium. So with Dr. Fukami, we had several exchanges during my time in Cairo, and we said, it's such a rich and culturally rich context, has so much association to India's economical ties, developments from all the way from 9th century to 15th century, has a combination of built heritage, unbuilt ecological heritage, and so many elements were kind of, coinciding. And the project had kind of, retarded post 2008. And of course, almost 2 decades later, the idea was to revive the project because of the essence that it had. And of course, the premise that was also set by the original project members, the thought was that why not, pick it up again. So at 5 Cross Architects, we initiated the project in collaboration first with the original project members. Then we reached out to CHC at CEPT University because we felt that an academic collaboration always furthers the whole discourse of heritage conservation. And since we didn't just wanted to leave it at the professional realm, we wanted to even dive a little bit more deeper at the research and academic level. So that's where an association with CEPT came about its being. And then we reached out to Eden. So our dear colleague Ajay Nayak, who's also here, who's the director at Eden, we wanted to kind of loop in the ecological aspects also of the unbuilt heritage. So that's how came about the being of this project. So like I said, this project Bhadreshwar or project Gujarat, which it was known then in 2001 because it covered various other port towns, was like a response mechanism to the 2001 earthquake and in Kutch. And the project Gujarat aimed to revive this heritage and preserve it for the future. And it's also interesting that, at India level, it was not us Indians who responded to it, but, these Japanese researchers and enthusiasts, as I may call it, who made this response mechanism to this whole project. And I think today's online colloquium will just give us a gist of, what we saw when we kind of, envisaged to take this project on from the original members itself to the renewed interest and focus areas that we're developing. So thank you so much again to the original members. And we have with us Professor Shu Yamane-san. We have Dr. Naoko Fukami-san. We have Professor Dr. Yasuyoshi Okada-san, who's also the president of the ICOMOS Japan chapter. And we have Dr. Okamura-san. So Dr. Okamura-san actually made his PhD thesis on the Kutch and specifically with Bhadreshwar. So the entire inception for the project came about from his research project as well, that we're going to further use as a very important datum in this project trajectory that we're going to develop probably together. So yes, if we go to the next slide. So yes, that's Dr. Naoko Fukami, Dr. Shu Yamane, Dr. Tomoaki Okamura-san, and Professor Yasuyoshi Okada. Just to quickly introduce the core collaborators, like we said, at Five Cross Architects, our focus was to revitalize the urban and rural historic precincts through heritage management, conservation, and architectural developments. And our practice emphasizes on community because that's the core that we feel that, heritage is a generational uh, aspect that we want to focus on through empowerment, collaboration with local artists, craftsmen, and eventually, trying to enhance the quality of life with all the interventions that we've been working across India, Germany, and during my student days in Egypt. So that idea has been carried forward. At CEPT, maybe Ashna, maybe you could just quickly introduce what the institution does, and then followed by Ajay. Sorry, you're on mute.
So sorry. So Center for Heritage Conservation is basically the research and advisory arm of CEPT University. And our specific center focuses on advancing the discourse of built heritage conservation through the lens of sustainability and equity. And these are some of the activities that we undertake at our center through various collaborations and projects. So we create a knowledge repository on heritage conservation in India. Through international level research projects, collaborating with international institutions, and so on. We also play an advisory role in a lot of government projects and collaborate with the industry as well. Apart from that, us being an academic institution, being part of an academic institution, we offer short professional development courses as well. So these are the three major modes of collaborative engagement that we have. So first is research and capacity building, where we if we adopt sites, we conduct research, and then we engage the local people, local contractor teams in capacity building activities, advisory and policy development. And then we have pilot projects called CEPT Conservation Site Schools. So if you could just go to the next slide. So this is the overall approach of the CEPT Conservation Site Schools, or for that matter, any sites that we engage with, where we start with basic safeguarding, documentation, and so on. So the process of conservation is essentially, it varies with each site. However, we make sure to integrate the process with educational activities, capacity building activities, stakeholder consultation, and awareness and outreach. So the next slide is just about these different activities that we undertake as part of our various collaborations that we have. So that's about Center for Heritage Conservation. Over to Adil again.
Thank you so much, Ashna, for that brief intro. Vishaka, can we go back to the slide for Eden, and maybe Ajay can quickly introduce the institution?
A very good afternoon to everybody. Am I audible? Very good afternoon again, and a big thank you to Five Cross for putting this together, Adil and Vishaka. Thank you to CHC, PRDF, both Ashna and Jigna, and of course the original team, the Japanese team who because of whom we are today here, who initiated the project so many years back. From that, Eden stands for educated environments. Our entire philosophy has been how do we, a team of architects, sociologists, technical experts. Our entire intent is how do we work on the unbuilt, what the architects work on the built. And the intent is how do we, there are so many intangibles and tangibles in the environment which need to be addressed. So our work is to see how water, waste, energy, etc. moves in a building. And the educated angle of our name is to see how do we develop a little more awareness and tie it to a buy into the community we work with. So with that, I think we should just jump into the presentation. Thanks. Over to you, Adit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ajay and Ashna. So we'll just quickly jump into, the project context in order to just geographically locate, where Bhadreshwar sits. It's about an hour and a half away from Gandhidham. Sorry, about an hour away from Gandhidham, maybe 2 hours away from Bhuj. And it's also the western coastline of India and close to the port Mundra and Kandla. So it kind of sits very strategically between these two places, and then Mandvi on the extreme west side of India. So Bhadreshwar, yes, is one of the oldest port towns of India. Today it doesn't function as a port town, but has a lot of economical activities that kind of surround around it, as well as cultural activities. So it is also one of the most important Jain Tirth So it's a natural magnet for tourists, for cultural believers, and that's just to geographically locate the site. If we move to the next slide, so this is a map from the book Bhadreshwar, the oldest Islamic monument in India, Part 1, written by Mehrdad Shukoi, where he covers a very brief documentation of the port town itself, the built monuments, and it's kind of a very revered publication for these port towns. So that just gives an idea of that it has been spoken about but less discovered. And through this project, the idea is to probably put it back on the map as one of the most important port towns or the earliest port towns of medieval India. So Vishaka, maybe if you'd like, you can also start explaining this. So Vishaka Kangar is also from Five Cross Architects, who's also the project lead from the studio. So please, Vishaka.
So zooming into Bhadreshwar, as if you want to broadly understand it, Bhadreshwar is a village on the western coast of Kutch, which is in Gujarat. To understand the village and to deep dive directly into the project, Bhadreshwar we perceive in three parts. The first is the core town, and yeah, core town, which is about 1.2 kilometers in diameter. Then the extended part of it, which were the economic interventions back in the day when it was a port town, and now when there are factory and modern day setups. And that extends to the Bhadreshwar beach, which is roughly a 6 to 9 kilometer stretch depending on the tide. So this is a consolidated version of how we approach the town and how it's geographically also understood and viewed and approached in three different layers. Yes. To talk about Bhadreshwar as a town, so broadly, if you have to divide it, the most initial part was the medieval town, where the town started to be developed from. Then was the modern town, and to bridge the sorry, yeah, to bridge. So Bhadreshwar as a town is divided into two stark developments. One that happened post the 2001 earthquake on the northern part, and the one, the medieval town on the southern part. And the Bhadreshwar town is also kind of joined with the Fulsar precinct, which is a very rich water body, which has medieval fort city walls and many heritage structures like the Chhatri and the step wells that are from the medieval medieval and the modern times of Bhadreshwar. So Adil, if you could take over.
So the idea would be that today's presentation will cover some premises of the 2001 Project Gujarat team, who've also been very kind to make a short presentation. And the objectives which were set then were, of course, to document the cultural heritage of Gujarat, to promote, and to create awareness about, its heritage and plans to, also provide for safeguarding against the earthquakes that occurred then and to also future proof it for any further calamities. And there were certain frameworks for these rehabilitations of Kutch while considering its cultural heritage. So the idea would be that this presentation would be uh, now be divided into two parts, which the first one will be taken up by the original project members. So that will give you an idea of what was the premise back then, and then understanding of what we're trying to do today in 24-25 since we've restarted the project. So I believe the next part, Vishaka, is for our members to present. So I think that's Dr. Shuyamane-san who's going to be sharing the screen.
So now may I share the presentation? Oh, sorry, just a moment, please.
We would also appreciate a very short introduction from you.
Okay. Just a moment. Okay, now may I start now? Okay. Oh, sorry. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for your arrangement and inviting us for today's webinar. I'm Shu Yamane from Japan and one of the members of original research and reconstruction project in Bhadreshwar conducted during 2001 and to around 2008. Today, I would like to share the outline of that project, which was called Project Gujarat at that time. I would be pleased if I could contribute for your understanding of the background of the new project, and also I would be happy if the outcomes of the former project would be integrated into the new project. 24 years ago, on 26 January 2001, huge earthquake occurred in the western region of Gujarat that caused a big disaster with more than 20,000 casualties and over 600,000 affected houses. After the earthquake, some architecture researchers and engineers in Japan organized a group which aimed to research and propose the appropriate reconstruction plan for affected area in long term, with a great regard for cultural heritage, including historic architecture and traditional vernacular living environment. The project was granted from Japanese research foundations listed here. In 2002, we conducted the investigation for 4 Kutch region to know the damages to the historic architecture and traditional living environments. We have seen many damages on historic architecture, such as Hindu and Jain temples. This picture is original condition, but after the earthquake, it was damaged, and also this temple was same like that. And also Muslim architectures many architectures are damaged, and also town and village architecture and traditional vernacular houses were also had much damage. The outcomes of the outcomes of the investigation were documented into the report, and some part of that report was translated in English, particularly about the inventory of in Bhadreshwar. After the first comprehensive survey, we focused Bhadreshwar for an intensive research and reconstruction project. The reasons for focusing on Bhadreshwar were: first, historically it was once an important port town in medieval times. The remains of those era are observed around the villages still now. Second, it was well keeping the traditional townscape and vernacular houses, including beautiful havelis built by wealthy merchant communities who was engaged in the Indian Ocean trade in 19th to 20th century. This is a Muslim monument called Ibrahim Dargah, built in the middle of 12th century, which is considered the oldest existing Islamic architecture in India, older than Qutub Minar in Delhi. These are part of the townscape of Bhadreshwar after the earthquake. This is supposed to be the oldest Haveli in Bhadreshwar, originally built in the late 18th century. It is called Krishna Haveli because it contains a small shrine for Lord Krishna, worshipped by Bhatia community in Bhadreshwar. These photos show the damages of vernacular buildings in Bhadreshwar. The investigation in Bhadreshwar was carried out in 3 phases. First phase was the evaluation and the selection of important historic buildings to make an inventory in Bhadreshwar. Second phase was the intensive research on variable architecture, which contained the measurement of buildings, investigation of structural condition and damages, and material survey. Third phase was investigation on the communities in Bhadreshwar to know the community distribution and the group form of traditional houses. These slides are part of the inventory of cultural heritage in Bhadreshwar, documented by our team. This slide shows the townscape of the main bazaar of Bhadreshwar. We found in our investigation that traditional dwellings in Bhadreshwar have a similar spatial type, which is called Delo. These are plans of some Delo type dwellings. And these are vernacular design of doors and windows. And these are ornamental elements in vernacular architecture. In some houses, traditional mural called kamagar or kamangar paintings were used for interior decoration. And this is the distribution of communities in Bhadreshwar based on our survey. And after the investigations, we chose 2 historic buildings for making model plans for reconstruction. One was Ibrahim Dargah, and the other was Krishna Haveli. This is a Ibrahim Dargah I showed you earlier. We measured every part of the building. And based on the survey, we made a reconstruction concept for Ibrahim Dargah. The outline of the method was as followed. The best way for the reconstruction we considered was dismantling and rebuilding. We considered the inserting dowels, stone joint pins, in this process would make the building stronger to the earthquake. And the cleaning of the whitewash would be considered to restore the building to its original appearance. And the permission from Muslim community was necessary for that reconstruction which was so much difficult. Another reconstruction plan was made for Krishna Haveli. The outline of method was as follows. We proposed the installation of cultural and life supporting facilities to the ground floor of the building for the villagers, and also proposed the installation of museum function to the first floor, which would display the Bhadreshwar history, Kutch history, and the history of Bhatia community, who was the owner of the Krishna Haveli. It was thought that the shrine of Lord Krishna should be left as it was. In the structural point, we considered that the retrofit concrete was necessary for the structural reinforcement. Based on those concepts, we created the reconstruction plan for Krishna Haveli, which, with the help of architect Terukazu Nii and Vasanti Nii, who once studied at SEPT. This is a plan for ground floor. This is a plan for the first floor. This is a structural reinforcement plan by retrofit concrete. These are the images of reconstructed and restored Krishna Haveli. In addition to those reconstruction plans, we tried to raise the awareness of local people for their living heritages. We organized working groups of local people for the heritage reconstruction with the help of local NGO Yusuf Mehrari Center. We conducted the heritage tour in Kutch for local people to develop their awareness to their own heritages. And we created a heritage map of Bhadreshwar to appeal the Bhadreshwar heritage to both local and outside people. The map was distributed at Aina Mahal Museum in Bhuj. These are the scenes in the heritage tour with Bhadreshwar people. This is a Bhadreshwar heritage map. But in the process of our project, we met many difficulties, such as the no map of Bhadreshwar and financial difficulties for reconstruction. And the continuous activities for heritage reconstruction were also difficult for us because of many reasons. And the government building protection system and the awareness of local people for the traditional living environment were not sufficiently developed at that time. And because of many difficulties, unfortunately, our heritage reconstruction plan in Bhadreshwar was not realized at that time. However, I wish this presentation would contribute something to the new project of heritage restoration and conservation in Bhadreshwar. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shuyamane-san. I think this so beautifully, capsules what all kind of transpired post the earthquake, and I'm certain, with this entire documentation done, then would kind of, help further this whole premise of setting up this conservation project once again after almost 2 decades. So moving forward, we have Dr. Naoko Fukami, Vishaka. That's the next presentation, right? So over to you, Dr. Fukami.
I share the screen.
Yes.
Is it okay?
Can you also please make it full screen?
Sorry. So, the shared already?
Yes, we can see it, but it's not full screen still.
Okay. Full screen. I shared full screen, no?
Not yet. It's yes, that's
It's
the
okay?
yes, now it is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. My name is Naoko Fukami. Now I am staying at Cairo. JSPS is the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science. This is a funding agency in Japan, and I am the director of Cairo Research Station. But actually, I am an architectural historian, especially Islamic architecture, and I start from India, Deccan, so that when I met the Mr. Adil, I talk about the Indian project, and I am very glad it came true. Today, I am focusing on the medieval Bhadreshwar. As Yamane-san explained, the Ibrahim Dargah is the oldest monument in India. And there are some explanation. In 1988 Manje Bayani report, Ibrahim is the son of Abul Hud. Abul Hud is something that he is a Shia missionary based on Sana'a in Yemen, and he visited Sindh and India in 1141. Or some Abul Hud is also Ismaili missionary. He called by Ghaznavid Mahmud when he invaded Multan 1010. But we cannot know who is Ibrahim actually. But there are some tombstones around 1174, some 12th century to 13th century. And Bhadreshwar itself, it was called Bhadravati in before Christ 516, and flourished as a port town, governed the 97 towns. And there are some the historical sources. And the Yamane-san shows this is 2002 and 2005. We make something like that one, and we cannot do anything to the Ibrahim Dargah. And also there is the Solar Hambi Masjid, the 1,000 Pillars Mosque, is half demolished, but still existing. It was reported by Shkohi also. And also Chotti Masjid is now standing. This is the same era, 12th century to 13th century. And also Duda Wab is very important monument in the 13th century. And the Chatri, unfortunately, it was demolished by the earthquake. This is the before earthquake. He gave us the photo before that. And the Jain temple, it was also damaged. But the Jain is a very rich people, so that after the earthquake, they rebuilt new Jain temple. But the Jain temple, it was also the historical one, and medieval Hindu temple also existing in Bhadreshwar. And unfortunately, we regret why this is the Panjrapir Dargah. It was not so old, but we didn't survey it. So I am regretted it. And our discovery is a medieval photo wall. So it's not the 700 meter east to west and 45 meter north to south. And the center is a Basai temple. So that in medieval town, the medieval town India is not clear. There are so many ancient town in India, ancient city India, and medieval town city in India, but unfortunately they are not excavated, so that we cannot know how is a medieval town or medieval city. But in the Bhadreshwar, there is a quadrangle city. The center is a Basai temple. It means some ideal city in India. We found some the city wall. So in the medieval time, the center is a Basai temple. There is a quadrangle city, and the Muslim as a minority, they live southwest corner of the town. This is how to say, the ideal city in India, quadrangle city. The center is a Jain temple. And the historic monument at the seashore as Port Saran in India. We found some ruins outside of the medieval city. So these are Chokanda Mandir and also the tombs, and some we cannot know what kind of the function, but some the stone monuments. So we suppose perhaps the medieval walled town or the medieval town is here, and the possible old coastline is like that one, and perhaps it flourished as a port town in medieval times. This is the last. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fukami, for setting this whole geographical idea of how Bhadreshwar is composed of. From there, we have Dr. Okamura-san, who will now present his findings, learnings from his PhD thesis. So over to you, Okamura-san.
Nice to meet you. My name is Tomoaki Okamura. Now I will share my PPT. Yes, my name is Tomoaki Okamura. I belong to the University of Kokushikan University, and on the other hand, I'm working in the Kyoto City Hall as a engineer for cultural properties. So now I explain about the spatial formation of the modern city of Bhadreshwar. I explain the 3 points. The first, spatial pattern of neighborhood blocks. And second, community, they call the jati distribution. And the last, dwelling pattern of the houses, vernacular houses. So in that time, the Kutch region, so it is a very strong relationship of a Safi coast. So we can see the like Haveli in the there are many Haveli in the Kutch region, like Mandvi and Mundra and Bhadreshwar also. And on the other hand, Swahili in the Swahili coast cities like Zanzibar and Muscat city, in that time, Indian merchant is living there, and they built like Indian Havelis. So now I explain about the modern Bhadreshwar. And after 18th century, the new settlement was constructed, was shown that the medieval rectangular urban area. So the modern city is removed from for the western side. The spatial formation of neighborhood blocks, and we investigate the name of the boundary of the neighborhood blocks. So many neighborhood blocks is a branch of the main street. We found 48 neighborhood blocks were founded. The typical neighborhood blocks called Fadia. is generally formed along the street branches from the major street. And there are some larger blocks called buses that include some fadias and delis. Many small shrines for the Hindus and Muslims are distributed within the fadias. Special patterns, the neighborhood blocks, which are called Fadia, Sheri, Gali, Was, and Delhi. Fadia is generally formed along the street branches from the major street. There are so larger blocks called buses that include some fadias, small fadia, and small delis. Many small shrines for Hindus and Muslims are distributed within the fadias, while public assembly facilities for each communities. In the city, in the center of about center of the city, so we found the Darbar Ghat. And in other area, so Dwarka and Jamnagar and the Bhuji, the city has a Darbar Ghat. It is a strong fortificated. But in the Bhadreshwar, it's not fortificated. Small scale, and Darbar Ghat is considered to be the one of the center of the urban area formation. Yes. This slide shows the Fadia and Fadia's name. So Bhatia and Koja and Joshi, Luar, gathering the living spaces where work and residence concluded. Fadia with 40 example of community names. That means a community division based on streets. Therefore, the community is divided based on the street. So we, in the survey, we found the distribution of the communities in the city of Bhadreshwar. The distribution of regional facilities and the fadias show segregation based on the region on the caste. We found 27 communities they call the jati in research area. We can see that the rule sharing of daily life by communities within each fadia. Sorry. In the case of communities around the major roads, main bazaar, so many merchant class like Bhatia and Luara caste is living there. 1950 migration to other cities. That's therefore, so there are many vacant houses. This is a Haveli of a Bhatia house. In the case of a community in the city center, so mainly the Jadeja, they are Kutch clan, communities in the Kutch clan, and they live in the Darbargad area. Other castes, so Rajput is a dot sword in the center, and Brahman reside beside the temple. Near the temple, they live near the temple. The Darbar God is here. Darbar God is here. It shows the daily chokes. This is a case of communities of urban periphery. The Muslim community and Maheshwari is living there. In the case of Ruhana Fadia, so 27 caste communities are living in Bhadreshwar, but some Fadias are decided by only one community. And why this like Ruhana Fadia, many communities are mixed in the some area where each community plays a part of daily life. This slideshow means two patterns. So how to segregation. Left side, Masjid Fadia, the only single community living there. This neighborhood block shows the original neighborhood blocks. I guess. So single communities help each other and manifest strong tie toward recovery. On the right side, that is Luhana Fadia. The many communities are living mixed. We guess it is far removed the original neighborhood blocks. The last dwelling pattern vernacular houses. So the almost houses based on the Delo type. So we check all of the plan of the Bhadreshwar houses. So we find not only Delo type, like other one, Haveli and the 1D type. The Yamane-san says the basic spatial components. The house consists about three rooms or three and two cars, and they have a center. The center is the angun, is a courtyard, and the on the street side, Betak and Delhi. Oh, sorry. So we found three types of the houses, and the type A is a typical type of a Dero type. Type B is the standing gatehouse of the before the beside to なんだっけ、the gatehouse is beside, and the C type is attached to a Betak house, and the huge huge house is standard, and they have a courtyard. Especially type C is we think a development house of Bhadreshwar house. So those equipped with a Betak are the most development type. It is thought to have emerged in response to the functional demands of the merchant class for space, like a Batia and the Luhana. Sorry. Conclusion, the characteristics of Bhadreshwar is absence of there is not strong force as a basis for local laws. The structure of clearly regional and caste-based settlement, the form and the dwelling type, the form and development process of the Haveli, which is common to other port city dwelling on the coast of the Indian Ocean. That's all. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Okamura-san. I think you've also wonderfully, explained how this community composition for Bhadreshwar was laid out. Even today, even though most of the community has moved out, the existing inhabitants, but even that identity still persists in that town. Even if someone new goes there and if he wants to find out something particular, it's not by the house, but by how the community was kind of residing in and around within that premise, so to say. So, yes, thank you so much for the presentation. Professor Okada-san, who's also very gracefully was part of the original project team, and also today he heads the ICOMOS Japan as the president, was kind enough to also make a very short presentation, giving his insights about his participation as well as how these international collaborations come about. And his wisdom, I think, has been there with the other projects that we at Five Cross have been taking up also, along with Dr. Fukami. So, yes, Professor Okada-san, over to you.
Thank you, Arthur. Good evening, everybody. Now I like to share my PowerPoint. It's okay?
Yes.
My name is Yasuyoshi Okada. Now, I already retired university, Kokushikan University, and they call me now Professor Emeritus. I belong to the Institute for Cultural Studies of Ancient Iraq in the university. And also I'm now work as Vice President of the Japan Consortium for International Cooperation in Cultural Heritage, financed by the Japanese government. And also I am working as the President of WICOMS Japan, as other introduced already. And also at first when I became a member of WICOMOS, I was an expert member of WICOMOS International Committee of Art and Architectural Heritage, yes, or Adobe buildings. And in 2004, I landed in the Indian subcontinent for the first time and visited the Kutch region in the recovery process after the earthquake. So I'm deeply grateful to Fukami-san and her team, Okamura-san, Yamane-san. I had once participated on behalf of Japan in the UNESCO ICOMOS joint recovery project of Alge Bam ruins in Iran. The site had been severely damaged, likewise, by an earthquake at the end of 2003. And what makes Bruges different from Bam is that Bruges is not an archaeological site, but a vibrant metropolis. This is a point that I was interested in, and I felt that it may also be the reason why reconstruction was not easy. On the other hand, it was a great pleasure for me to be able to reach the site of Dora Vira. Sorry, I have not changed the screen. Astonishing enough are the tremendous traces of large-scale civil engineering works during the Indus Valley civilization and the remains of impressive stone masonry, quite different from other same context sites. Doravira was inscribed in the World Heritage List in 2021. It's no surprise. Also, the extended run of Kutch before arriving in Doravira must be attractive natural landscape. I had the impression that it was an object to be protected and that its potential as a tourism resource could be pursued. Then now I entered the Bhadreshwar. This slide shows the places where I joined the team for survey in 2004. Please allow me to use the showcase drawing of Solar Hambi Masjid instead of my own photo. Oh, I couldn't find a photograph from my album. This ruined masjid was half buried in the cultivated, otherwise abandoned fields. The surrounding area was of particular interest to me from an archaeological point of view, together with the discovery of fragmental corner masonry of walls of possible old city, with Vasai Temple in the center. These impressions were brought to me more than 20 years ago, so I'm afraid of the present conditions of that area. If digging the abandoned area became a reality, urban structures of the old city parallel to the ruined monuments would come to light. I have high hopes for the people of the next generation, the next younger generation. Yamane-san, Okamura-san. And these are that's all my report from Bhadreshwar. Next, to date, I myself have been involved in research and conservation projects at many archaeological sites from West Asia to the Mediterranean. Among them, I introduce some examples of my own deep commitment from investigation stage to preservation works. Here are 5 archaeological sites highlighted in yellow in this slide. Now I'm going to introduce them, but for saving the time, please allow me to skip the first 2 cases. I start with the case number 3. These sorry to skip. This case is Choga Zambil in Iran. Under the new Islam-based regime, Iranian government accepted the framework of UNESCO Japan Trust Fund project for conservation of one of World Heritage Sites, Choga Zambil. The project involved experts from Japan and France, France from Crater EAG, as well as UNESCO program specialists. The first step proposal appeared in 1995. Worthy to note in the project are as follows. The multilateral cooperation, initially in Japanese domestic diplomatic idea, and second, conservation of building material, that is mud brick, as the main program. The third, 2 training courses with guidance of cartel. The first one for the Iranian domestic capacity building, and the second one aiming at the international contribution, mainly Central Asian countries. Next, number 4, Argebam, also in Iran. An outstanding example of earth and construction fortified town with the Qanat system, continuing over at least 2,000 years until 1932. The site was visited fortunately by many adobe experts on occasion of the Terra 2003 conference in Yazd after the earthquake in December 2003. An on-site expert workshop was organized in April 2004 and adopted the declaration and recommendations for improved planning and conservation of BAM's heritage. First, conserving full significance of Algebam. Second, conserving the heritage of city and landscape. Third, integrating heritage in the recovery process. Four, preserving the tradition of earthen architecture. Five, preserving damage to earthen heritage in seismic areas. Six, sustaining cooperation to realize the goals. And at last, the site was inscribed on the World Heritage List in 2004, but as an endangered site, then removed from the endangered site list in 2013. That's a report from Algebam. And then the last case, case in Jordan. After the end of Iraq War in 2003, UNESCO set about an international recovery program from Iraqi cultural properties and advised Kokushika University to organize a training project. In response, Jordan government provided us, Kokushika University member, with the site of case. That's a Roman site. The project included a capacity building program and excavations at part of the site, financially supported by Japanese Official Scientific Fund and JICA, the biggest organization of cultural assistance. One of trainees is now the president of Iraqi State Board, Mr. Ali. Wait a moment. As concluding remarks, I would like to say that a world without wars and disasters can only be in dream. We can find always somewhere in the war or conflict or the disaster damage. Excavations of buried ruins and the surveys of traditional settlements are a lot of fun for me. However, I warn myself that we must not forget that there is a world in our immediate vicinity which requires the restoration of preferable living spaces and their preservation for the future. That's all my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Professor Okada-san. I think there's always so much wisdom when talking to you with your experience of working across so many of these international cooperations. And I hope that we can continue taking thoughts, ideas from your experience of dealing with heritage at such an intense level. Thank you so much once again. Moving forward, Vishaka, can we please share the screen again and we come back to, what the project today entails. We started it off in 2024, and this first colloquium kind of, puts together the premise of the way forward. So our objectives, from the intense documentation, learnings, analysis, which were done from 2001 all the way to 2008, we kind of broke it down to three parts. First, that how would one reclaim Bhadreshwar's historical, social, cultural, economic, and ecological significance, since it was not just about the built heritage anymore, it was also aligning with the unbuilt ecology, and how this cohesive conservation solution could kind of retain, restore, and rehabilitate to a certain extent both the built environment and the unbuilt ecology. And of course, in paving the way for a more sustainable development, not forgetting the community that also resides around it and how their quality of life can also be improved at a larger level. And of course, then came in the collaborators CHC, CRDF, and Eden, along with Dr. Naoko Fukami and the original project members from 2001 who gracefully accepted to also collaborate with us on this project now. Taking things forward, can we move to the next slide? Vishaka, maybe if you'd like to just capsule very quickly, about the overlaps and the timelines for everyone to understand the history for Bhadreshwar.
So the history for Bhadreshwar has a very it has a lot of overlaps in the timelines across many folklore stories and historical events that have been recorded, seen, and then also further translated into the buildings. So Bhadreshwar traces back to the times of Mahabharat and also Indus Valley civilization, where it was mentioned as Bhadravati. Uh, Also, the earliest, because it was a port town then, Bhadreshwar was also one of the earliest port towns of India, which interacted and had very rich trade relations with the Middle Eastern countries and especially with the Arabs. Back then, also, it had many towns under its extent and had a wider territorial space that amounted to a larger town of Bhadreshwar. Uh, in terms of architecture and planning, we see that there are a lot of traces of prominent Jain rulers and Islamic invasions, and all of these rulers and invasions, and also when the Arabs were welcomed for trade in the town, we see traces of those cultures in the structures that we have in Bhadreshwar till today. But with moving time and when the businesses forwarded and the development took place, the port town had been moved towards Bhuj and to other major ports, leaving Bhadreshwar dormant in the late 1800s. So that was a capsule of the overlaps and timelines and how Bhadreshwar, from the mention in Mahabharata as Bhadravati till now, has progressed. Yes, Adil.
So this is just like a little recapsule of also what the modern town looks like, its association with the medieval town, and how the post 2001 earthquakes also had impact between this ecological corridor, which was between the north part of Bhadreshwar towards the modern town, which namely is the Fulsar precinct. And we've used that as one of our starting points for the project. So if we go to the next slide. These are just some visual images of what the 2002 Fulsar Lake Precinct, the step well, looked like, and then how today that ecological impact has created a very strong disparity between the built and the unbuilt. And there's this overlap that we're trying to also address through this project. And of course, very well put in by Dr. Fukami, Dr. Yamane-san, and Okamura-san about the tomb of Ibrahim from 2002 and how today it also looks like. With Soul Kambi Masjid also suffering further damages and deterioration. So there are multiple micro projects that are in the way to also revive this entire conservation initiative in Bhadreshwar. So some more ideas of what the built architectural heritage of Bhadreshwar looks like?
So we started work and visiting the site in since the last year. So this was our very first site visit in the February month of the year 2024. And here we can see that the stepwell has submerged under the water. We made our next visit in we made our next visit in July 2024, which helps us to see that with the changing in the with the change in months and with the change in climate and the microclimate, how the fabric of the Fulsar precinct as an ecological corridor and of how people and the relationships with the built and the unbuilt aspects of the town keep changing. So, just to bring your notice to the statue of Sri Dharamshi Punja, who's also associated with the Yusuf Mehrali Center there. And in our following visit in August 2024 with the team members, so I would like to draw everybody's attention to this photograph here, which shows the change that the town goes through and how in terms of climate and in terms of how people reacting to these spaces also change the nature of spaces and how they're perceived. And on the top left, top right, the first photograph shows another aspect of Fulsar Lake just 6 months after our first visit. The very visible ecological changes. These are some facts and figures that we have documented from our initial research, from the data collected by the Japanese members and our concurrent site visits. Moving on. Adil?
Yes. So we kind of understood that this site required an overarching vision, and today's colloquium is the first time that we're going to put that out, what these overarching visions are, from macro concepts to micro interventions, and what various domains and focus areas and intersections we were trying to work within. And it was clear that, I mean, heritage in its own was not just the only focus area. It also had to do with the social aspects of community identity, the participation, focusing on the culture, intangible heritage, traditions, because that's quite relevant even today, with the way the community kind of interacts with the place, within one another, and with the ecology at large, about a more sustainable environment and resource management. And above everything, it was about, the livelihoods and a more sustainable growth. So conservation of this heritage site entailed these 5 domains. And our focus area was about bridging the culture and natural heritage for a more sustainable development, regeneration, and community involvement for a more collaborative framework, and looking at tangible interventions that could drive resilience. Our work statement, sorry, Vishaka, our work statement includes, improving the quality of life of these community through a more holistic, evolving, and a more community-centered approach. So about bridging the culture and the natural heritage, it was about the place to practice and integrating culture to natural heritage. So this diagram just kind of shows that how culture, social civilization, and natural heritage are kind of, moving more towards a more culturally integrative society, which acts as the identity of that place, and with a more awareful ecological stewardship towards our unbuilt ecology. The idea was to bridge this gap at a more sustainable development level between how natural heritage could be preserved. It could bridge this gap between the communities, which in turn could lead to a more strengthening of these social cohesions, fostering heritage conservation, and overseeing these ecological impacts. Because we're not just looking at these heritage, built or unbuilt, for the next 5 or 10 years. It was about how it would be also prepared if in case in the near future there would also be another natural disaster. What would be our preparedness for then? And therefore, I think, taking leads from the 2001 members, the idea was to continue with that same narrative. Yes. Next slide. So when we are thinking about empowering the community, of course, that's the core focus area: data collection, outreach activities, awareness programs, interventions both at a tangible and intangible levels would be focusing on the economic ideas, social programs, cultural programs, geographical understanding, not just within Bhadreshwar or the coastline, but also at how a macro level the impacts are perceived, and as well as ecological impacts. And the idea was about co-creating solutions. The outcome of this 1.5 year of studies that were ongoing and explorations has led to what we are calling it as a rural observatory that we would be setting up in Bhadreshwar. Next slide. So when we talk about driving resilience, the interventions for this community-driven resilience, from data to design, from what we are now calling a rural observatory, was about coming out with informed information or information data sets for a more informed outcome and community interventions. So from like a climate change perspective with the terrain, biodiversity, ecology, culture, social dynamics, to policy debates at a community level of what their immediate environment kind of also demands and what is the action to response that we would like to build through this project at large. And from then, the tangible data to designs, taking cues from the proposals, then ideas for working within the museums, schools, skill centers, community centers, that then balances the intangible community-driven resilience, which is about balancing in social cohesions, heritage conservation, and ecological sustainability. Next slide. So now I would hand over the baton to Ajay, who would take us through the unbuilt aspects of the site context. So over to you, Ajay.
Thank you, Adil. A very good afternoon once again to everybody. For us, we, as environmental consultants, is what we usually are referred to. It's usually supporting an architectural thought or planning thought. But in this case, it becomes a much larger ambit for us because when you visit, I think it was covered by the initial presentations also on the context in 2004 after the earthquake. When you go to Kutch or Bhuj or Bhadreshwar, the context of the earthquakes or the historical range of what nature has to offer has upset the entire way the mankind or the built fabric has really evolved, designing with nature. And I think that has been a precedence for us also to really approach this particular project. What we were really thinking is that the landscape and the techno feasibility that really it offers has a lot of social political push that really comes. And that's why when we approach all the issues like the seasonal river, the Jain pilgrimage, a lot of human and natural influences that will come on the project. We divided it into the inactive, active, voiceless, and the humans. What we really mean is that what is in use right now, what is not in use, the many marginalized, be the animals of the flora, fauna, or the human beings or the settlements. And we talked about, I think, Tomaki-san talked about the entire division in the societal structures itself. There is a lot of voicelessness also. How do we make it an inclusive approach? For us, that becomes an intangible way, elements of the fabric to carry forward. Also, Adil mentioned it as a rural observatory. And while he was speaking, I was thinking it is a urban or a semi-rural urban observatory because Bhadreshwar in its time was a town, medieval town, and the influences. So it was a cosmopolitan for its era. And maybe that is also something that we need to take up in terms of the socio-political nature of this project. And from that comes the inactive will give us clues to way forward, what was and what can be integrated right now. The active will really give us what is and what we want to do with, allows us to gauge what are the aspirations and the approaches that we can do. The voiceless is that the marginalized should not be left behind. I think when we went in August, the hot humidity of the dog in the Pulsar Lake gave us the preview to what is a true natural response to the climate. And humans, yes, the dependencies which exist, and how do we really respond to it? Because the society also has its ways of rationing water, natural resource, what who can use, how to use, etc. Without understanding that, we really can't come with forward with what we are designing with. So again, repeating what Adil said about data to design, we really are looking at creating approaches to establish a community-based resilience here. Next, please. So we take all that data and really look at what is the problem statement, what are the approaches we can come up, and then come up with the resolution to what is the balance between the culture, nature, and the economy. Because when it comes to something like the degradation of built heritage and what has to do with water, at the same time, we have to understand the seasonality of the water and the endangered livelihoods. So really, we look at the issues which we really are working with and seeing the approaches we can really come out, and then curate literally a intersection of culture, nature, and economy to come to a resilient planning approach. And that will lead us to what we call a future ready township, because reason is that, or a settlement for Bhadreshwar, because reason is future readiness is what we are really trying to create in the environmental approach, because of the constant shift in not only the Earth's plate, but the human settlement, once prosperous, now a ruin. So really, we're seeing how these plates keep shifting and what is the role of the intangible in this tangible matrix that we call conservation. Next, please. Again, coming back to the nature, culture, economy connects the intersections where the social aspirations are coming. So the ecological approach will truly be really resource regeneration, but seeing how the community benefits. How can we really make the capacities for management are built into, because we come and go as professionals, but the community remains. How, if you have restored something, be it the heritage, natural, or the built heritage, the community needs to have its participatory role. Otherwise, it will be left behind, and in 10 years, again, it will decay. And I think from that's where I would like to pick at it on what was said by Dr. Shu Yamane-san, and that was that he talked about the skill sets of karigars, or the people who crafted the built heritage. For us, it's also as important to find the craftsmen for the unbuilt heritage, which is people who worked with water, to find who are the well diggers, who are the who work with water systems, who work with alternate systems, because that's how we will be able to restore and establish a kind of a livelihood pattern for them to survive. So I think the exploration of finding data is not just about resource for ideating, but also people data, finding missing links of people who can work with us on this. And that's where the community comes in the picture. Next, please. So our entire approach, while architecture and conservation zooms into the fine detail and the conservation of it, what we also do is zoom out. For us, when we look at ecology, it's looking at a regional level, tracing the water movement, the wind movement, the energy, sun's movement, in case we need to look at the clean energy possibilities here. Look at the employabilities. We're looking at the intertidal zone. It was wonderful to see the Dr. Naoko Fukami-san's tracing of what are the possible old coastline, because for us, that's exactly what we were trying out here, to really see what is the movement of water and how do we see the relationship of Bhadreshwar, old and new, in its larger matrix of its region. And that's how this is about. Then we can establish the water security, the biodiversity plans, the socio relationships within the town and outside the town, and negotiate a possible lifeline for its sustainability, economic also, and so that it survives. Because Bhadreshwar as a heritage settlement or a settlement is dying out. It needs to expand, get a new lease to life. And that's what this whole exploration would be, the circles of influence, as we call it. The next please. So what we're really looking at is sectional range of the town and seeing what the inhabitants have to do with resource. Fishing is one of the livelihood options that offers the maximum. So what we really are seeing is, like fishing, the topography offers what kind of resource and what kind of relationship or livelihood options that we really are giving. For example, there's an ecological corridor between the old and new town. What are the really possibilities for that wetland in terms of economies? Can we really look at the phasing of or envisioning of that wetland creation with economies that allow the return of possible inhabitants here or possibilities of businesses here for people? That will allow the sustainability plan to really evolve. Next. So from nature culture, we really move on to how do we really look at the past, present, and the future. And in that, we also see the annual cycles and the long-term cycles, because nature is not static. It keeps changing. We don't look at the diagram on the right. Well, what our approach is, not just look at the surface water flows or natural flows, but also subsurface water natural flows, because that's what also get affected, and resource mobilization happens from that. So we're really looking at annual patterns, which is winter, spring, how the movements really, the temperature allows the biodiversity to succeed, what kind of crops come on the farm, what kind of fish grow, or which are the seasons for that, what kind of culturing of things happen in nature is what we really are trying to plan out here. And that will really give us our techno feasibility of, yes, this is the approach that we really want to do, and what would be the feasibility for it to happen. Next. Yeah, I will close with that and over back to you. Thank you.
Sorry, we can go back to the previous slide. So the idea why we were so driven about, looking at this whole ecological restoration was because the Fulsar Lake precinct is that corridor that has both the aspects of a stepwell from a built heritage perspective. It has the guards which are around it, and then kind of moving into the community within the architectural synthesis which currently exist, and our idea was that we wanted to find a bridge, and ecology was that bridge between the built and the unbuilt, and we found that okay, that could be the starting point. But and of course, not leaving behind the Havelis and the Darbargarh, as well as the Gaushalas which exist there. So all of those will be taken up as individual micro restoration projects within, like rightly I think Ajay said, the rural urban town of Bhadreshwar. So that would be, and of course, as a starting point, over to over to Ashna, who's currently heading one of the research projects, as a continuation to the existing research work that is ongoing in Bhadreshwar. So yes, over to you, Ashna.
Thanks, Adil. So this is a directed research project that we've just started. Meghavi Suthar from the Master's Program in Architectural History and Research is working on it. She has just started her research, so it's still at a very nascent stage. But the overall research intent here is to analyze the spatial transformation of the town through the historical layers shaped by maritime trade, political change, and demographic shifts. Kind of tracing the evolution, not just in terms of historic events, but looking at influences of the cultural flows that were generated because of trade on the built form. So whether it's historic buildings or upcoming buildings, or how has the architecture of the place changed, and what impact, as Ajay very rightly said, there's needs to be a link between nature, culture, and economy. So what we are trying to do here is kind of establish a link between culture in the sense of built form uh, and the economic transition that has happened over the years. So the main tools for investigation are archival research, architectural mapping, and documentation. And interviews with residents of various communities. So the project essentially builds on the research that has already been done by our group of Japanese scholars. So we would really like to thank them for kind of building a context for the study. And it sort of builds on it to create a public engagement tool. So what we are planning just now is to create an illustrated historical timeline as a resource for public engagement, so that it's kind of a conversation starter. That's what we are imagining it as just now, where people, if you have these illustrations or drawings or photographs in front of you, it's easier for people to relate to. It's easier for people to talk about their memories, or even the lack of memories, or this demographic shift that has happened. So it'll help us kind of kickstart conversations around the conservation of built heritage, ecology, um, and the entire essence of the town in that sense. So that's about it for now. I'll hand it over back to Adil.
Thank you so much, Ashna. So yes, I'm guessing that for Meghavi, this was like a pool of knowledge that, brought everything together for her. So
Yes.
wishing her the best, and definitely looking forward to the output that comes out at the end of the 16th week research program.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, moving forward, yes, of course, this does not stop there. And our call for action by the end of this colloquium is that we're setting up an observatory workshop in Bhadreshwar, which would happen sometime by the end of March. And this would be around the idea of the intersection of people, heritage, and the community frameworks around the five domains. And it has been planned out in a way that the idea is to look for observations, create study material with the community, reflect on the impacts that currently the community suffers. At the same time, document it, because as part of the practice at Five Cross, I'm sure also with Eden and CHC, documentation was something which all the three institutions wanted to reflect in order to continue what was started in 2001, and then create interaction workshops with the community, ideation workshops, and then plan for collaborations, and eventually lead for assessment. So we would be sharing some more information of what this workshop would entail, and further details. And with that, we would like to come to the conclusion of the presentation. If any of the collaborators would like to make any closing remarks, Ajay, over for the observatory workshop, please do add, and then we can open up for some questions, discussions, and definitely comments from our original project members of what their thoughts and ideas are about this renewed conservation project that we're trying to set up. So thank you so much.
Would anybody like to share any closing remarks, or we can otherwise move to the questions or discussion?
Dr. Shu Yamane, I think you're on mute.
Yeah. Thank you for your presentation of the new project, and I'm so much pleased that our research and our project is now succeeded to the new generation and with the new perspective of the environmental aspects and also intangible heritages. That will be, I think, very, comprehensive project. It will be. So at that time, after the earthquake, at that time we focused mainly to the built environment, and also because our specialties are architecture, so we mainly focus to the historic architecture and historic townscapes. But in the process of our research, we came to know that behind the architecture expression, there is so much history and of society in India and in Kutch, and communities are so much involved in for making and forming the townscapes and traditional houses. So we came to know that we have to know much more about the society and the communities in that area. And but at that time we could not do enough research about that. But this time, with the joining of Indian Koreans, this kind of aspects will be cleared and founded more. So I really expect the success for this project, and I'm so happy to joining here today. And if I can help anything, I will do as much as I can. So thank you so much for today's invitation, and I really expect for your effort in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yamatsan. I think that's very kind of you to acknowledge. And yes, with the aspiration that we can take the mandate forward for conserving our built and now, of course, the unbuilt heritage ahead. Dr. Fukami, if you have any thoughts.
Thank you so much. I'm very glad to hear that the project will be come true. And perhaps the Bhadreshwar has a possibility, and also there is a value to preserve. So if it is possible, it is including the Jain temple and the vicinity of the medieval town. It's my hope. So the environment project is very important for them because of the Kutch is a special the natural aspect. So in the point of the Kutch and the land, so it is a very good example to preserve the historical monuments and the natural heritage also. I hope you are successful at the achievement, and if it is possible, I will join it. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fukami. Professor Okada or Dr. Okamura, if you have any thoughts.
Dr. Adil,
I've actually not gotten the.
thank you so much for your and your colleagues' presentation tonight. I am very much respecting for your colleague. And may I have one question? The area of your target in Bhadreshwar, how let's say overlap with to the area Japanese team once surveyed?
Sorry, I'm unable to understand the question.
Your maybe I couldn't understand very well the target area of your project. Is
Okay.
that that's the same as the area of the survey area conducted by Japanese team?
Yes, sir. Actually, it is the context and our starting point is actually the premise where the research ended for the original project members. And we're taking forward that and breaking it into micro projects that would start off with this first ecological corridor of the Fulsar precinct. Because our idea was not to look at directly the built heritage, because that involved a lot of diplomacy. But at the same time, we wanted to look at a platform for the community to kind of benefit from. And that would be the bridge that we are trying to create through our project narrative.
Thank you. And other than the area of Bhadreshwar, or for example, the coastal some coastal town, uh, uh, your project include your project may include the that area other than Bhadreshwar itself. My interest in the not only Bhadreshwar town, not only, uh, uh, but also surrounding monuments and heritage site. So I hope your your work. I hope your work will extend it to the outside Bhadreshwar in the future.
Yes, I think we all are hoping for that, that this just does not, because the impact even from the 9th or 10th century was about from the Middle East to Bhadreshwar and to India. And we're hoping that probably in at least the next decade forward, we should also look at extending it to other places. But at least I'm certain about that we're going to start with Bhadreshwar first and then take it to the other port town cities as well. So, yes, thank you so much for that
Thank you.
aspiration. Yes,
Thanks a lot.
thank you so much. Dr. Okamura, are you actually saying something because you're on mute as well?
So thank you for your presentation. And so I surprised to your presentation is focus about water system the north of Bhadreshwar city. So in that time, so do when we do the research in modern Bhadreshwar, so the segregation, community segregation is continued and still remain, and each community having the own facility, their facility. Basic, I feel the very close community, but the water supply, water system is it is a place where a lot of people coming and gather, and it is public. It is a public space in the Bhadreshwar. I think it is a good idea. So for the for the people and the future of Bhadreshwar, and so I hope this new project is going well. And, yes, that's all. So thank you. Today I'm very happy to join this this workspace. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Okamura-san. So maybe if any other attendees, I'm guessing there are few of them, but I'm certain that with this being published then on other platforms, I'm sure this would kind of, spark a lot of questions later. But if anyone from the audience or the collaborators have any questions, comments, thoughts, closing remarks, happy to have them.
Hi everyone. I have a question for our Japanese scholars and anybody if you can answer the question. From my literature study, I got to know that Bhadreshwar had a major decline in its trade and political development as well. So I couldn't find or I couldn't relate to what kind of led to that decline. So if you have any insights on why the Bhadreshwar had its decline for its trade and its position on the maritime trade, that would be really great to know.
I'm not sure I can answer your question totally, but my thought is that at the time of the later part of 19th century and the first half of 20th century, Indian Ocean, west side of Indian Ocean were occupied by Omani dynasty, and their capital was shifted to the Zanzibar, in Tanzania, on the island of Zanzibar. And at that time, Omani dynasty hired Indian merchants for their tax collection at the eastern coast of Africa. And at that time, many merchants from Kutch region did the trade between Indian Ocean, between Kutch area and Zanzibar and the eastern coast of Africa. And that time was, I think, the highlight of the flourish of the modern time of Bhadreshwar. So because of that trade, some communities could make big money and they could build beautiful havelis in Bhadreshwar. Even the Bhadreshwar was not a big town at that time, or still already, but some havelis are very much, so luxuriously built, and some communities used much money for the building of their beautiful havelis, and but maybe in the middle of 20th century, all the, and after the World War II, those African countries got independent, and Indian merchant was excluded from their trade. Then I think their trade have declined, and because of that economic reason, the town is also town had the Bhadreshwar town also got declined. That is my story. I'm not sure it is totally right or not, but uh, as far as I studied the history of the Indian Ocean trade, I think about that. If if are there any addition from Professor Fukami, please.
Thank you so much. And perhaps the 19th century, under the British Empire, and also the industrial the revolution. So the ships route had changed. So the medieval town Bhadreshwar is the supporting by the dhow transportation, but the steam ship had appeared. So the Mandvi and the Mundra is better for the Bhadreshwar. But for the people of Bhadreshwar, still the working, as Yamane-san says, under the British the Empire and Oman Empire, the traders, the West Indian Ocean, I think.
If I may add to
Please.
Kami-san's observation, I recently read, in fact, about Maharashtra, the decline of ports in Maharashtra during the British era. And that was because when the British wanted a hold in India, what happened was that since they were better naval farers, the warships were better than the Indian ones, they kind of created an entire defense system of incoming trade from the West, the Arab countries, etc., which prevented any of the trade routes, or they stopped the trade routes coming from the West, which limited the local trade. And once they established it, the ports of Mumbai and Bombay became much more popular than the ones up north, where those ports diminished. So that may be one also exploration to what Fukami-san talked about earlier. And maybe Megri, you can trace a little bit of history from that.
Yes, thank you so much. That was really helpful about how I can place the part where the decline of Bhadreshwar started to happen.
I mean, it has impacts all the way from 9th century, right from, the Jain rulers, the overthrowing of one after another to take captive of Bhadreshwar because of its importance at an economical level. So that was like one aspect. And then, over the centuries, how, the entire impact went on from from the Portuguese to the British. I think these all things kind of impacted Bhadreshwar and kind of slowly started to decline and deteriorate its position as a trade hub because of its proximity to the West. And that's the first port that, introduces India. So, it was always there in the focus area until even today, you see, the entire ports of Bombay are kind of losing its integrity as well as, importance because of other activities that are done in Gujarat or say in Goa or something. So in that way, there's always a shift of power. And the shift of power was, I think, one of the reasons for this decline in port town activities. Great. I think, yes, if anyone else has, otherwise, I would give my concluding thoughts on this. So, okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you to the original Japanese members, to the collaborators, CHC at CEPT University, Eden, members of Five Cross Architects, and special thanks to Dr. Fukami, who actually took a lot of efforts to also bring the original members together. And I hope that, as we progress with the project, we can actually make these colloquiums a digital archive of the entire project itself. Even though we may have few attendees today, but I am certain that with this information being published later online, this would kind of act as an archive to the entire project itself. So thank you so much, Ashna, for hosting this colloquium. Thank you again to Center for Heritage Conservation for being a collaborator, and I hope that with that our partnership also kind of keeps on growing. And we look forward to the rural observatory that we want to set up in Bhadreshwar the next months. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this webinar.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
バイバイ。ありがとうございます。